Welcome back to MFO, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. Boy, I tell you what, the 2026 professional bass fishing season is underway, and it's taken off with a bang. I mean, the BPT had their first stop, stage one, at Guntersville over the weekend. What a drama-filled event. I mean, there was everything, lead changes and burning boats and all sorts of stuff, and phenomenal fishing. Boy, I tell you what, Guntersville showed out. We've got all the details for you, and we're going to wrap it up and also tell you about what's coming up, because it started, but now it's going strong. Literally in 2 more days, we've got the next event, and then in a week and a half, we've got another event, and then another. It's like an avalanche taking off. So guys, stick around. We'll tell you all about the BPT and what's coming up when we come back. Welcome back to Mark Fisher Outdoors, everybody. I'm Mark Fisher. So the BPT started off, they were on Guntersville. The first thing I got to say is, they've shortened down the field. They're reduced the field, 51 anglers in the field. So the one thing about the new format that they have is that everybody's fishing. You're not in a situation where you're watching on a Thursday and only half the field are fishing while the other guys are sitting at home waiting for their turn to fish. Everybody's fishing. So you turn it on and you go to MLF Live and you're watching. Everybody's on the score tracker. Everybody's fishing the first 2 days. I thought that was cool. I liked that part. So they're all fishing. They fish for 2 days. Like I said, all 51 guys are fishing for the first 2 days, and then they cut to 24. And the reason for that is whoever wins the first 2 days doesn't have to go to the knockout round. They immediately qualify for the 4th day, the last day, the championship day. That turned out to be Jacob Walker, who did it in phenomenal, like last minute with the score, with the countdown going down, the clock running out. Banks Shaw had the lead. Banks was on TV talking about how, his strategy was going to be, hey man, if I can hold out for the next 2 minutes, I'm going to, this is what I did so that I don't have to fish in the knockout round. And he was talking about it on TV. All of a sudden, they cut away to Jacob Walker, who's reeling in a fish. He gets it over the gunnel in time, and boom, he steals the championship, or that 2-day championship away from Banks Shaw, and ends up being able to qualify for the championship round and not have to fish the knockout round. So very exciting after the, kind of a final conclusion to those first 2 days of fishing. Jacob Walker, as you may know, is kind of the hometown favorite there. And he wasn't done with his fireworks by any means, but we'll get to that part. So the reality is that I didn't even mention this, but Drew Gill won the tournament. Drew Gill had every day of his tournament started out in the beginning, the first period. As you know, they get to use forward-facing sonar for 1 period of each day. Drew Gill started his day each day outside the bridge at, I think it's North Saudi. It's a very popular area to be, using forward-facing, and would just rack up a huge number of fish catches. Interestingly enough, on the first day, Drew Gill caught all of his fish in that first period. He never caught another fish on the second and third period. That was something that he had to make some adjustments on, because he wasn't going to win it if he couldn't start figuring out how to catch fish other than using forward facing. We'll get to that as well. So anyway, a lot of anglers did use that forward facing in the first period, then went to more traditional methods the second and third period. We saw guys catching fish on rattle traps. on chatterbaits, on jerkbaits. Even guys like Wesley Strader throwing a jig around laydowns and things like that. Guntersville absolutely showed out. So we get to championship day, and we've got Jacob Walker back in the mix. Drew Gill goes in like he's done all 3 days before, starts forward facing and racks up a 24-pound lead at the end of period number 1. And so now he's got to be able to catch some fish doing other techniques in order to hold that lead. Well, over the other couple of days, day 2 and day 3, he started to kind of put together the fact that he needed to use a jerkbait and do some other things to be able to catch fish. He ended up on the final day using a small little crankbait to be able to catch a few fish. But that 24-pound lead that he had on the last day of the event actually dwindled down. At one point, he was only 4 pounds up on Jacob Walker. You had other guys like Jacob Wheeler, who was kind of surging ahead. So here's the way the final day finished out. Jacob Wheeler had a spot with smallmouth that was 50 miles away. And he hadn't used his forward-facing Jacob Wheeler is a master at strategy. So on period 3, Jacob Wheeler drives the 50 miles, gets to this little area that's got smallmouth. Now, he knows that these are big smallmouth. We're talking about 3.5, 4-pound smallies. He gets there, literally makes a cast, first cast, boom, 4-pound smallmouth. He's starting to chip away at this 19-pound deficit that he has. Now, keep in mind, this is the 3rd period of the 4th day. He's down by 19 pounds, and he starts catching these 3.5, 4-pound smallies. And he's using forward facing, but the reality, and once the minnow stops working, then he starts going to first he started with a swim bait, then he went to a minnow, and that's right. He was using a swim bait first, then a minnow, and then when that stopped, he started throwing a jig and just working the jig down. The problem with his spot was he knew there were a limited number of big smallies on there. He literally got to the point where he was looking, going, I think I fished them all out. There aren't any left. He ended up being like about 4 pounds short, maybe 8 pounds short. Needed basically 2 of his keepers that he was catching to catch up, and he just ran out of fish. While that was all going on, Drew was catching one here, one there on a small little crankbait. So he was kind of keeping pace, but Drew would come up this way, and then Wheeler would come up like this much. And Jacob Walker was catching big ones as well. Jacob Walker had big fish of the tournament with a 7.4, but to begin with, on championship day, he had a 6.9, then a 7, then a 7.4. So he's catching these big fish, and like I said, he's even making bigger jumps. We're getting down to the countdown. Jacob Walker needs like 8 pounds to take the lead, and he's hooked up, and he's got a big one on. Turns out that it's 6.9. Right at the buzzer, 6.9. So he jumps up, but not quite enough. Drew Gill ends up winning it by 1.5 pounds, if that much. It was really amazing. On top of all of this drama that you got going on, you got Banks Shaw, who, as I said, was leading on day 1, only to get beat out right at the end by Jacob Walker. But Banks Shaw, who had been, this kid was such a phenomenon on the pro circuit, comes in and is doing real well, makes it to Championship Sunday, and ends up with a fire on his boat, and to the point where he has to trade boats out and get a sub boat or a a boat to use for the rest of the tournament. Just a lot of drama in the first BPT event. And as I said, Guntersville showed out amazing. What an amazing fishery. What an amazing time. So cool, for an event where I've fished Guntersville quite a lot, and every place that these guys were, I recognize that, I recognize where he is, and a variety of techniques, chatterbaits, red rattle traps, jerk baits. Obviously, the forward facing played a big part, and to see guys in front of those bridges that we've all seen guys catch fish on with traditional approaches, but just sitting out there scoping and picking those fish off that are right outside those bridges. Those are fish that we never caught before, and they're catching them with the scope, like it or not. But this new format with the reduced number of guys and the fact that they can only use forward facing for one period a day, I think it lends a lot to it, guys. I'm interested as to whether you paid attention to it or not. Did you like it if you watched it? If you didn't, maybe after hearing about this, you'll kind of tune into the next one. The next one's on Hartwell. We're going to go out. Let's talk about that for a minute. On Wednesday, the dual threat fishing starts. That tournament starts on Wednesday on Okeechobee. So 2 days from now, that tournament will be underway. The pro circuit, practice starts February 1st. The event starts on that Thursday. Or no, I guess Friday. That event starts Friday, Saturday, Sunday event. And then the BPT will be going the middle of the month to Hartwell. So a lot of tournament action coming up. Fishing season is here, and we're excited about it. Guys, let me know what you think. I appreciate you tuning in, and we will see you again tomorrow on another episode of Mark Fisher Outdoors. Take care, everybody.